Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh. I'm going to be going through the PTR changes coming to Overwatch right now and how they might actually affect the entire game in future in a bit of a bigger way. There's quite a long PTR test going on at the moment as of October 2016, and this gives Blizzard the ability to try larger, more significant changes than they could normally do in a shorter cycle. Now, some of these may well not make it all the way to live. You may have seen a lot of these reported on already elsewhere over the last few days. I want to take a step back and look at what these changes seem to be trying to achieve in terms of wider themes of changing Overwatch gameplay. Here's some of the changes that look to be coming. Firstly, there's a definite look at the viability of heroes that seem to be out of favour. For example, there's a big focus on the defensive category, one that people have debated whether certain heroes should fall into or not in recent months. Torbjorn and Widow, for example, are both getting changes. We know that Symmetra has got a rework in the offering, and also there's been a slight tweak to Mei. Torbjorn's scrap is passively regenerating now. You get a little bit less off dead enemies to compensate, and his hammer is actually swinging faster with lower damage done. Now, I get these changes to a point. Torb's existing strength, if he had any, he's still a pretty sideline pick at the moment, was in his gun. It hurts quite a bit with the shrapnel effect and up close. These changes are hopefully giving him easier turret maintenance. In the PTR, Torbs are throwing up turrets a lot quicker and keeping them up a lot more quickly too. He's still keeping his strength with his weapon. Perhaps it's going to be easier to throw out those armor packs as well. I think these changes are probably aimed a bit more towards helping Torb's turret be a bit more survivable or a bit more replaceable, meaning that he can roam around a bit more rather than being stuck to his turret. Widow's got a couple of tweaks. She was brought to quite a weak place. Her Venom Mine, when it goes off, is now not going to damage her as the planter, which is quite a sensible quality of life piece. There's also a 20% increase in the charge speed of Widow's Kiss. Widow's Scope got a little bit of a tweak recently. Now she's got a little bit of her charge speed back. She's going to be hitting those charge shots and be able to move around and target select that little bit more quickly, which is something that skilled Widow players will definitely take advantage of. The elephant in the room is Symmetra's rework. That's going to be coming November or later, apparently, according to Blizz, certainly post BlizzCon. We've already heard in the sound files recently from data mining a little bit about increased amounts of charges. It'll be interesting to see how that translates. Either way, there's also been rebalancing in other areas, so it looks as though that probably the least played competitive tank is getting a tweak up again, and one of the most played is getting a tweak down. D.va's got quite a chunky set of changes. She's now 25% faster when moving while firing and gets 100 more health. Now, trying this out in the PTR, D.va is packing a punch. She's a really tanky flanker and raider now. The increase in her moving while firing speed is kind of significant. It lets you dodge around a lot with D.va and keep firing while ducking in and out of cover and trying to move even more. Zarya now generates 20% less charge on both personal and projected shields. If people were shooting at an enemy Zarya's shields or shielded target, she could go from 0 to 100% charge in a hurry, and this could make her instantly very, very dangerous as a damaging threat. This actually caps her out roughly at not being able to go fully to 100 charge in one set of bubbles most of the time, meaning that she needs a couple of engagements or a longer fight to get to that 100 energy face-melting goodness. Given how prevalent Zarya is in solo queue and competitive play at the moment as one of those must-picks, it's going to be interesting to see whether this really changes how much she's played, or whether other damage comes to the fore as the amount of damage that a tank in Zarya can output actually decreases. Healing's also getting a bit of a balance. Lucio and Mercy changes are incoming, so Lucio at the moment has a reduced amount of area healing, and Mercy's got a bit of a boost in her regen speed. Mercy has to be zipping in and out of the front lines quite a bit. She now has her passive regen kicking in after 1 second rather than 3, meaning that if she takes damage, she doesn't have to be hiding for quite so long before she can get herself back to a level where she can keep herself a bit more alive. That regen will help her shrug off a bit of that more quickly, and maybe reduce those situations you just survived the line of fire as a Mercy, but are then finished off after trying to hide, or trying to get your team to protect you. Lucio's area healing has always been really strong. He had his damage down tuned in the beta when he was very, very strong in that area, and he's generally been played with a bit since. He's still a bit of a ubiquitous pick. It's never normally too bad to have him on your team. So these changes should hopefully make him that little bit less strong, and hopefully let the other supports come into the meta a bit more. Attack's had a few tweaks. Now, Pharah has had some controversial ones at the moment, and it'll be interesting to see how the thinking has been done around these. Pharah has been out of favour a little bit in some more competitive metas due to the sheer prevalence of McCree and occasionally Soldier 76. So this is a bit of a funny one. Pharah's minimum damage that she'll do with a rocket, depending on the proximity of your shot, has been increased, which means that you should be landing a bit more damage, but the minimum knockback has been decreased all the way to 0, so you can effectively hardly knock back anyone at all with a Pharah rocket. Now, the knockback on Pharah rockets was useful. One of the things, even if you couldn't always land direct hits on enemy hit scan heroes such as McCree and 76, was that you could juggle them around and push people around, even without using your concussive blast. So, at the moment, with a little bit of experimenting, this feels a little frustrating to me. Putting enemies off their aim and being able to juggle them around a bit was one of the things that Pharah was pretty strong with. Now, given that Soldier 76 has a buff, which we're going to go through in a sec, this may see Pharah as being in the meta even less, or they're going to be playing as more ground-based ranged artillery, so maybe not flying the friendly skies so much. How does 76 tweak tie in? Well, he's got a buff to the amount of damage his bullets do, although the spread has been made slightly bigger to compensate. I can see that these are probably trying to bring him a bit more into contesting with McCree, who, if you have a good aimer, is always generally a very good pick on a team. Either way, Farah's beware. In the little bit of testing I've done, Soldier 76 feels pretty monstrous to me on the PTR right now. Of course, this may not go through to live. The spread does affect any longer range shooting and aiming you're doing a little bit, but he really shreds up close now. Go give him a go, see what you think. Mei's ult charge rate has been slowed, even on top of the main ult charge rate being slowed, which I'll cover in a second. It was very fast. We're going to have to see if that's just a little bit too slow now. A lot of people didn't realise that if you ice blocked with Mei and pretty much fully healed yourself up, you were almost getting 25% ult charge. So in a big team fight, you could almost trigger a Mei ult twice. It was ridiculously quick with the amount of slow and damage that was being put out. Finally, Ana's Nano no longer buffs movement speed. That's the second tweak to Ana's Nano in as many patch notes. She's had her ult charge rate tuned down, and now this is a removal of one of the key things that made it a little bit on the heavy side. Ana will still be in a bunch of compositions. Nano is still a very strong ability. Again, maybe this will let Mercy come into the game a little bit more. The second trend that we see that Blizzard seem to be experimenting with is the general slowing of ultimate focused gameplay, and that has some consequences. Firstly, the tweaks. Dealing damage to non-player targets doesn't charge ultis anymore. For example, at the moment, gunning down a symmetric teleporter could massively charge a chunk of your ult. And the ultimate cost has been increased by 25% for all heroes. Why does this matter? Well, at the moment, any coordinated team's decision making and play from esports level through competitive down is effectively a few different things. Whether or not to engage, are you all engaging as a group? What is your ultimate status and how can you bring those different abilities together? And the ability to win a team fight or capture a King of the Hill point based off of that or make some progress on the map. That's vastly simplified, but obviously ultimates are a big factor in a bunch of those decisions. If you have more ultimates up than the opposition and manage to use them properly, then this can swing the fight in your team's favour. If in an eco situation you can inflict damage, create a man advantage or power play, bait enemies into spending ults on an eco push, it'll help you more when spending yours. Now, increasing ultimate cost, or slowing down the rate at which they charge, is slowing down the frequency at which they can be used. Well, what does this mean? Ults will matter a little bit more, they'll be more effective in terms of the flow of the game with proper use, and people who blow them will be wasting more resources and chances for their teams to take advantage. The overall slow in ult charge is feelable on the PTR, but competitive isn't available there right now. I really look forward to seeing how these work in competitive games, and I feel we might see the PTR with comp after any new hero at BlizzCon, perhaps with a reworked Symmetra as well. The other thing as well is that if ultimates are being used less, then these ultimate pushes are going to be a little bit less frequent, meaning that there are going to be more of these eco rounds in between. So that'll be interesting to see how team play comes out a bit more individual skills outside of the ultimate based big moments. The third thing I was thinking about, and this is speculation, could be that these are pre-balanced partially for any new hero. What could these potentially mean in a wider context for Overwatch? Well, we have a new hero most likely incoming in the next month or so, and maybe even in a few weeks. If Sombra isn't at BlizzCon in one way or another, I'll eat the customary Reddit bar of soap. Could some of these balance changes be testing on how to prepare the current meta and hero roster for Sombra's abilities? It would make sense to prepare, and then give her some specific testing on the PTR after to see how she works out. Now, Sombra's got a couple of speculated ability sets. One is stealth, solely off the basis of some in-game sound files that were on a PTR build, and we don't even know if they're linked to Sombra. The other is completely speculative, but could be interesting to think about with regards to this patch in dealing with ultimates. A global reduction of ultimate cooldown also potentially does something else. It paves the way for some kind of ability that interacts with ultimates, in my opinion. A hack if it was Sombra. What could this be? Maybe seeing your enemy's ult charge, that's powerful and useful. A direct interrupt might be kind of a bit too strong. Maybe some kind of reduction of your enemy's already accumulated ult percentage, or removal. Again, could potentially be strong depending on how it's balanced. With longer cooldowns on ultimates for all characters, any ability that interferes with enemy ultimates becomes less spammable. It couldn't be used as frequently, and the timing of its use would have to be better. If ultimates charge quickly, the ability would probably have to be weaker. Sombra, or whoever used it, would have to use it more like a StarCraft 2 SAT scan, or it would have to be a cheap ability and perhaps feel less like an ultimate. Finally, files were in a while back hinting that heroes could detect stealth heroes. Now, it'll be fascinating to see if Sombra brings stealth to Overwatch, or if indeed this is in the future. That's a potentially massive balance change depending on how long the stealth lasts, what kind of stealth it is, and how detectable it is and what can detect it. There's nothing in this PTR right now to suggest that stealth might be coming, but who knows. I can't wait to look back on it in a few weeks' time, maybe a month, and see what we've had after BlizzCon. Cheers for tuning in to my thoughts on the current PTR tweaks and news. If you like this vid, do throw a like or subscribe, and let me know in the comments below what you think of the changes. Have you managed to try them out yet? You can check out all my latest Overwatch lore, hero interactions, voice lines, sounds, and speculation in the playlist here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.